I was there.
You were there? Okay, so is it... The story that I heard was that when Reagan saw it, he started talking about how close to reality it was, and he was quickly ushered out of the room. Is that true?
No, he wasn't ushered out of the room. He was the President of the United States. Nobody could usher Ronald Reagan out of the room. It was in the White House screening room.
Yeah.
And Reagan got up to thank me for bringing the film to show to show the President, the First Lady, and all of their guests, which included Sandra Day O'Connor in her first week as a justice in the Supreme Court, and it included some astronauts. I believe I think Neil Armstrong was there. I'm not 100% certain. But it was an amazing evening, and he just stood up and he looked around the room almost like he was doing a head count, and he said, "I want to thank you for bringing E.T. to the White House. We really enjoyed your movie." And then he looked around the room and he said, "And there are a number of people in this room who know that everything on that screen is absolutely true." And he said it without smiling. But he said that, and everybody laughed. By the way, the whole room laughed because he presented it like a joke, but he wasn't smiling as he said it. Yeah. The room did laugh, and then later on, I'll never forget my conversation with the president. He pulled me aside. He said, and I can't do Reagan, but I wish I could do that breathy, wonderful voice of his. Yeah. And Nancy Reagan was standing right next to him, and the president said to me, "There's only one. I only have one criticism about your movie." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "How long were the end credits?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know, maybe 3.5 minutes." He said, "In my day, when I was an actor, our end credits were maybe 15 seconds long." He said, "Why don't you let everybody get a credit, 3.5, 4 minutes, that's fine, but only show that inside the industry. But throughout the rest of the country, reduce your credits to 15 seconds at the end." And Nancy Reagan turned to him and said, "Oh, Ronnie, they can't do that. You know that." And he went, "Oh, yes, I suppose."
That's awesome.
That was the extent of my conversation about that. That was the only criticism. He felt the end credits were too long.
It was taken up, and so I'm a believer. I've seen 4, and I'm pretty sure they weren't meteoric bolide. I'm pretty sure they weren't Mercury.
Wait, Dan, you talk, man. Where did you see 4?
Yeah,
you said you saw 4?
Yeah, I was in Martha's Vineyard one night at 3 in the morning, and I went out actually on the deck to relieve myself because I like to do that outside because I'm a man.
Did you defecate or did you piss?
No, that I'd like to master that. That'd be no, I was just having a leak out there, and I saw these 2 objects at about 100,000 feet, glowing very brightly, flying edge to edge, 2 discs, and very, very bright, just like round and vividly bright. And so I called my wife out, and I called 2 other people that were sleeping in the house. I said, "Come out, you got to see this." And we watched as these things lazily sort of zigzagged across the sky at what must have been around 20,000 miles an hour. Wow. Now, I know that wasn't a planet. I know aircraft. I've been in an F-5 fighter plane. I've been in helicopters. I've basketballed a DC-10 simulator down the runway. I've been in a B-25. I know aviation. It was not... that. So that was the first one. And the second one was I was at my farm, and I was going out into town going to dinner, and it was at night, and I saw this little red light coming along the power lines that run on the other farm next to me, and that little red light moved along, and I'm like, that's got to be a helicopter. I'm looking, and so I got a police bike, and it's got the wigwags on it, the lights, so I turned them on, and just to kind of see if I can attract attention. And the thing comes right over, and about 700 feet above me, it shines a light on me. And I'm listening. I got to hear rotor wop. I got to hear rotor wash. I got to hear an engine here. I got to hear an engine. I hear no engine.
You heard nothing.
And that thing popped that light on me, really bright light. And I kind of looked at it, and then the light winked off, and the thing just floated really, really slowly away. Slower than a helicopter might have been going. No, the fourth one was I was in Montreal, Canada. I was in a hotel room watching spiders make webs on the 23rd floor of the Queen Elizabeth Hotel. They were
number 23.
Yeah, could be
numbers thing. They said 23.
3, 4, 5. Numerology 505, my favorite number. And this thing was coming along, and it was a big square thing. It looked like a bunch of party balloons all stuck together. And I'm thinking that's going to be the biggest party balloon set that I've ever seen. It was a big gray thing. It must have been, I'm thinking maybe 100 feet long and maybe 10 feet across. Big square thing. It comes and it just stops. And there's no strings, not like a barrage balloon or a blimp or anything. It just stops, and it slowly turned and then just drifted off over the river. And I'm thinking, man, that's unconventional. Then I went back to look at my book that I have where I have some references there, and I saw one just like it. So I believe I've seen 4.
Okay.
I believe the reports of other people, and I think there's something going on.
Dan Aykroyd is here.
Not a lot do. This pilot, though, who flew Barack Obama during his 2008 presidential campaign, says UFOs are real, and he's seen one firsthand. Here to share his almost unbelievable story is pilot Andy Danziger. Nice to see you this morning.
Good morning.
Now, we should be clear that this incident that you saw happened in 1989. Why did it take so long for you to talk about it?
There was no formal policy at my airline or any airline I've ever worked for that said not to talk about it, but it was kind of unwritten. We were young, we were new in our careers, and the way people tended to be ridiculed about all this, you just kind of kept quiet.
So this came out during a Daily News interview recently when you were asked about it.
That's correct.
Had you ever seen a UFO? And you responded that you had, and you went into detail about. So what happened in 1989 on that day?
Unbelievable. We were flying from Kansas City to Waterloo, Iowa. I was just a first officer in a commuter airline turboprop. And crystal clear skies in Kansas City, crystal clear skies forecast in Waterloo. Supposed to be good weather en route. It's only a couple 250 miles away. We reached our cruise altitude of 15,000 feet, and all of a sudden we just noticed, we're busy in the climb out. Those smaller airplanes didn't have autopilots. Leveled out, and a lot of thin, wispy clouds all around us. I noticed off to my right, and I was sitting in the right seat, was a white disc, just kind of thin, visible, barely visible behind the clouds, or dimly visible behind the clouds. And it was a little odd, but we were used to seeing a lot of things in the sky, so when you see something strange, you start looking around trying to figure out what it is. And the first thing you think about is the moon, because it looked like it could have been the moon dimly visible, but the moon was out over here, and it was a crescent. It wasn't a full moon. So it couldn't have been a reflection of the moon.
So this large disk, you described it as being pretty large.
Oh, yeah.
Massive. And then after a while, it was following you.
Or we were following it. It was pacing us.
It was pacing you. Then something unbelievable happened to its shape and its color. It turned into a giant orange ball glowing in the sky?
Yeah, after we'd been looking down for searchlights and stuff from the ground, maybe something shining up on the cloud, couldn't find anything. After about 40 minutes, we started our descent into Waterloo, and as we started our descent and looked up, here's this giant red ball just above the clouds.
Unbelievable.
Oh, it was.
And there were people, of course, who witnessed this on your plane as well, not just you.
No, the captain that was on the plane did. I don't know about any of the passengers.
Like air traffic control, I've talked to a lot of pilots here off the air in commercial breaks, and I've asked them this question. We've talked about it, and they've all admitted that they've seen UFOs, but they kind of keep quiet about it. Why is it that they keep quiet about it? Is it fear of losing their job?
I don't know. It's you don't want to be brandished as being crazy. That was one of our concerns before we actually reported it to air traffic control. We discussed it amongst each other. Is this something that's going to jeopardize our career? The government discounts every single report that ever seems to come out. The news media tends to, or at least in the past, has tended to ridicule every UFO report. So, that was all going on really big back in the 1980s.
Since you came forward, what have you heard from people? What have you heard from other pilots who have said thank you for speaking about this?
A little bit. I've got a few friends who called me and said, wow, maybe this is going to finally get the stuff out. I've seen stuff, and it's about time that somebody came forward and you're actually getting some press, and maybe people will start believing this a little bit more.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us. Andy Danziger is the pilot who flew Barack Obama on his 2008 campaign, witnessed that UFO in 1989. And Ronald Reagan admits to have seen UFOs while he was flying in the airplane. A couple of times, actually. Great to see you this morning.